I'll tell you that no matter how much pleasure you have, they're always in coming into existence. So inevitably, coming into existence is going to be harmful. Do you want to have your own kid? Well, I used to have desire too, to have my own kid. But through studying a philosophy called anti-natalism, I started to develop this thinking, which is not to have children. Today, I want to talk about anti-natalism, reasons why I'm not gonna have my kids, and neither should you, coming up. Hello everyone, my name is Taiki, and today I am going to talk about something different from veganism, which I usually talk about in my channel, which is anti-natalism. So anti-natalism is a way of thinking that bringing children into existence is morally wrong. There are several reasons for that, which I'm gonna explain. To start off, the first reason for not coming into existence is the life is hardship. You will either feel too hot or too cold, little pain or little discomfort. It's always never possible to feel just right, to feel 100% comfortable. How many times have you feel just right when you're feeling your climate around you? Either it's too hot or too cold or not comfortable. Secondly, you face rejections, anxiety, pain, suffering, and everything that's considered as bad in life if you exist. So, life is full of hardship. How many times have you heard the phrase, life is hard, deal with it, live with it? Another reason for not having your kids is that you'll suffer from your child's loss. Now, how do you know if you don't lose your child? Perhaps you could lose your child from a car accident, or he or she committed suicide and goes away, where you cannot meet with them forever. You will suffer a great loss, and possibly, well, mostly your children suffered from their life too. So life is hardship, children and you, neither of you have to suffer. Of course, if you're optimistic, you find an argument. Well, life might be full of hardship, but there are good things like compassion, benevolent, being kind to others, being able to help others, being able to feel love. You know, there are things, good things and bad things. That's what life is all about. And I want to have my child to have a life like me. When it comes to saying, I want my children to have a life like me, people fail to notice the difference between life worth continuing and life worth starting, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So let's look at the life worth continuing. Life worth continuing is basically happy life. You might have financial stability, love from your family, deep connection with your friends or significant other. There is a great life goal, no chronic pain, a lot of serotonin in the brain, well, basically happy life. That's life worth continuing. Whereas life worth starting is about someone who yet to exist. That person whose potential might have a good life, might have a financial stability, might not have a chronic pain, might receive love from a lot of people, but there is also a possibility for them to have a bad life. They might be in circumstances where they have to suffer poverty, they have to have disability, they have to have a chronic pain and unemployment, rejection, everything, right? So there are two aspects of possibility when it comes to someone who might be brought to life. And it's really, really important to distinguish the life worth continuing versus life worth starting. So those who want their children to have a life like theirs are blinded by the life worth continuing. They have to consider that their potential child is going to have a life worth starting or not worth starting. Child has to, if possible, it's more right to have a consent from the potential child. Yes, I want to have a life. No, I don't want to have a life. That's too much of a gamble. We have to decide that. Simply put, just because your life is going great doesn't mean that your child's life is going to go well as well. It doesn't mean that. It's really important to consider because once someone is brought to life, it's harder for them to decide whether the life is worth continuing or ending. For example, nobody would kill a person with a limb out of pity just because, or they have a harder life than other people. Missing a limb might be difficult, but it's not so bad as to end their life, right? But so many people would be opposed to bringing someone who is going to miss a limb. So we know that bringing someone into life with a condition is morally wrong, but not when it comes to having a person without a disability. If you see a person missing a limb and he claims to be dead, we will automatically encourage him to stay alive, no matter what. We would tell him that, well, missing a limb must be really hard, but it's not so bad as to kill yourself. Although the person is suffering a lot, the only way is to be, strong or alter his thinking or something like that. It's almost as if there's no option to kill himself, despite the suffering he's been facing. So, if he didn't exist in the first place, he wouldn't have to face the suffering that he is now suffering. Now, you might think I'm a pessimist, focusing on bad aspects of life only, but I'll show you a chart to help you understand that coming into existence is always harmful. So, I'm comparing X, existing X, and X not existing. X is a person. X, if X exists, he has to suffer. He faces pain no matter what. Like I said, pain is inevitable. Life is full of hardship. But he gets to have pleasure also. So bad thing and good thing happens in a life. However, if he didn't exist, he wouldn't feel suffering, pain, or pleasure. Neither of them. Does it sound a bit bad that he misses the pleasure, missing out the pleasure? Well, it actually isn't bad, because he doesn't regret missing pleasure if he didn't exist. So if I were to have negative positive ratio or label, it goes like this. X, if he exists, he faces pain but also pleasure, negative and positive. But if he didn't face, absence of pain is good. It's morally right. He doesn't have to suffer. Although he doesn't have pleasure in his life, he doesn't deprive, he doesn't think, he doesn't have emotions, he doesn't regret not having pleasure. So you see, absence of pleasure is not bad. What I mean by that is it's not good or bad. It's just neutral. Therefore, no harm done. Now, if you still think I'm a pessimist, having no emotions is better, I'll tell you that no matter how much pleasure you have, there's always a harm in coming into existence. So I'll give you an easier example. There are two people, S and H. S stands for sick and H stands for health, right? So S and H, they have different ability. So S can get sick, but luckily he has a capacity for quick recovery. He gets sick, but he recovers very, very quickly. Whereas H never gets sick. So he doesn't have pain. He doesn't suffer pain, which is sickness. But he doesn't have an ability to heal quickly. So you might recognize that capacity for recovering from illness is not essential for H. Therefore, the capacity of recovery from illness is not advantage that H might deprive. Does that make sense? So if I apply that chart to the former chart, which is between existing X and non-existing X, you will see presence of pleasure is not advantage over absence of pleasure that the non-existent X possess. So simply, non-existent X doesn't miss or doesn't deprive pleasure from existing X. Therefore, having pleasure is not advantageous. It's always better to have a healthy body which never gets sick. There's no pain at all. If there's a body who gets sick, there's a pain. So inevitably, coming into existence is going to be harmful. More harmful than not coming into existence. Again, living in this world is always going to be S. Sick. You will face suffering. You will face pain. It's inevitable. No matter how fortunate your situation might be, you will feel pain. This might be harsh, but procreation does not collect consent from a child, potential child. Even if you're a happy person, we will never figure out if the potential child wants to be born or not. If you have a plan of making babies, you have to draw a distinction between, like I said, the life worth continuing or life worth starting. What if the child gets suicidal? He or she might be happy, but you never collected from the potential child that they want to be born. So you don't know if the potential child wants to be born. What if that potential child regrets coming into existence? A lot of people, there's a statistic that 1 in 10 people commit suicide, and unfortunately they are successful at it. Usually people commit suicide to escape their pain permanently. When you're depressed, it feels as if there's no way out but to end your life. I've experienced depression. I've been suicidal for so many times. I sometimes do still. I'm being a bit subjective here, but this point of view is very objective. So it's similar to an anti-vegan argument where cows wouldn't exist without humans. But did cows even give a consent that they want to be born? Cows exist because humans breed them just for human profit. Life of a livestock is always going to be miserable. It's always going to be very harsh. If cow got to give a consent before they were born, they would strongly refuse to be born because they don't want to be treated like shit by some kind of apes. So bringing them into existence is the problem. That applies for humans and other animals. And you know what? You might suffer from your child loss too, and child might suffer from his or her life. There's a possibility, a great possibility, especially in this fast world, and especially during this COVID period. Everyone is having a hard time. So remember to use protections, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until next time.